On the island of Cyprus, 300 years before Christ, there lived a very rich merchant, called Zeno. During a trip his boat sank along with all his cargo, and because of this one event, an event that was totally out of control to say no of from anyone else, this very rich man suddenly became poor. Suddenly now imagine that you would be and not how you would react if your life's work was thrown down the drain by the sheer force of nature. Would you be angry? Would you feel wronged by life? Good for most of us, those would be normal reactions, but not pleasure, no. The father of Stoicism. A small change lasts forever, and a small overhaul of your mindset can turn into bigger, more impactful changes. Later, the core of Stoicism is the very definition of acceptance and indifference. After reading the works of Socrates and other great philosophers, Stoicism did not create Stoicism, and according to him, although we don't have much control over what happens to us, we do have control over how it affects us. Therefore, we must use this control to our advantage. Instead of whining about the spilled milk, or in this case the drowned goods, Zed did not focus on keeping his composure about the situation, staying calm and neutral. Even though he was going through that whole situation in the present day, people mistakenly see the Stoics as indestructible people, as people who didn't usually experience extreme emotions like angry attacks or anxiety attacks. But the original idea behind Stoicism was much more than that. Instead of just being a way of describing people without emotions, Stoicism was a way of seeing, describing and understanding the world was a lifestyle, and that lifestyle lasted for centuries. Stoic philosophy can be applied to today's situations in the same way it was applied thousands of years ago, and its benefits are equally impactful. Stoicism allows us to process these negative emotions as a result of certain experiences and turn them into thoughts that give us a unique perspective on the world. Perspective is everything, and everyone has different experiences. So that means we all also have different perspectives on things. From the time when the Stoics met, discussed and taught philosophy in a public place, only general philosophy was widely known. They believed that historical principles could be very beneficial to any kind of person, and so it made no sense for him to hide this knowledge behind the four walls of a school or the courtyards of the palace. As a result of this, everyone from slaves to emperors could learn and become Stoics, and they did. Some of the world's most notable Stoics include epithets whose name translates, acquired by having been purchased as slave, Seneca, who was a renowned statesman, and Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and one of the most powerful men to ever pass through the earth. The early historians practiced what they preached, avoiding all forms of segregation and leading the fight against inequality. They even invented the word cosmopolitan, which literally means a citizen of the world. That way, even at a time when it wasn't popular, women could also freely learn about Stoicism and become Stoics if they wanted to. But why is it that so many people today adopt Stoicism as a lifestyle? Well, in a world full of unexpected twists and turns, our emotions tend to get in the way of things. In reality, we don't get sad that bad things happen to us. We are sad because bad, unexpected things happen to us. Look at the rain, for example. It's a good thing. It helps water our plants, provides water for animals, and keeps the temperature cool and moist. But the truth is that when you are without an umbrella, in the middle of the street you come across a huge dark cloud over your head. You hardly interpret a situation like this in a positive way, but then the question becomes, why don't we start crying when it starts to rain? This does not happen because, although the situation is bad, we have already learned to accept the fact that it may rain, as it is something inevitable. We have no control over the weather, and although it's often a stretch of time, the rain passes and the sun reappears. Stoicism teaches us that in the same way, we must always be prepared to accept the fact that many bad things are not under our control. Inevitably, there will be an hour, and one of the historical exercises is known as voluntary discomfort, which is an exercise that aims to increase feelings of gratitude. This can include sleeping on the kitchen floor, taking a cold shower when you normally take a hot shower, eating nothing but potatoes for a few days, things like that. This exercise helps you understand that no matter how hard it is, you will still survive and most likely thrive. If your mindset is correct. By being able to endure these uncomfortable situations indirectly, we prepare our mind for future adversity with the current state of the world, where announcements are constantly pushed down our throats. We are led to believe that if we don't have the latest version of something, if we don't look a certain way, or if we don't make a certain amount of money, we'll never be able to be happy. And that message is more important now than ever. We came into the world knowing almost nothing. We grew up learning things at home, at school, and observing the world through our own lens. The point is that often these three sources of knowledge teach us in different ways. And the question is, do we really need to internalize all this knowledge? Because if we do, we may be setting unrealistic expectations for our lives, even if we don't know what will ultimately leave us disappointed and dissatisfied. Ultimately, and that's certainly not the best way to live. We must focus on improving ourselves for ourselves, attaching any external hope or secondary attachment. The actions we take almost always lead to frustration. Most of the time, we end up trying to fill that void with external things, spending all our money on a fancy car, a trip or a house. Sometimes we do all these things for their external value and not for their internal value. But Stoicism teaches that if you approach life that way, you end up putting your happiness in the hands of external forces, forces that can always fail. For example, cars almost always break, natural disasters sweep away entire cities, and divorce rates keep rising every year. But even the free things in life have a cost, which is the cost of space, both physical and mental. As Seneca once wrote, learning to live with less will create space in your life for the things that really matter to you. We must place our happiness in our intrinsic value as human beings and not in things that we have or that we can acquire physically. We must choose to do our best to keep a cool head regardless of what life gives us, because whatever we want, at the end of the day, we have no control over most of the things that happen to us, but we do have all the control over how we react to those things. And this is the dichotomy of control, the most important principle of Stoic philosophy. Backgrounds teach that you should judge the success of your work based on the amount of effort you put in and not the result those efforts generate. So just trust the process. You see, think of an employee who has been working hard at his job for the past 6 months. He now feels he deserves a promotion, so he decides to go to his boss with his performance report under his arm. The boss thanks him for the result but doesn't give him the promotion. And then he goes home upset, thinking he must be a lousy employee. He doesn't consider that his boss might simply be on a bad day, or that someone else might have been more qualified at that point, or that maybe the company was going through a bad phase and just couldn't afford it. He doesn't know why, but the fact is that he's still going to be upset for quite a while. But look, if he just put his value on the quality of the performance report he delivered and continues to do, which he was doing to earn the promotion he wanted, he might have been a lot happier overall. With the right perspective, his goal would not have been a failure, but only prolonged. It is this reshaping of mindset that is crucial. A true track record does not see his success based on the financial gain of his ventures, but rather on the fact that he can live a comfortable and happy life without all the things money can buy. These are the 4 main virtues of Stoicism: wisdom, courage, temperance and justice. Wisdom is being able to separate what is internal and what is external, and the ability to choose our reaction, the things that happen to us, as Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response to a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Courage comes down to two words: persist and resist. Temperance or moderation means to do more with less. It's to say more using fewer words, just as I did just now, while Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk who fight at the top of the list. Forbes, the Stoics believe that the limit of wealth should be simply to have the essentials and then have enough. Justice is the most important of all virtues. It instructs that no one should do harm to another, because we are all born for each other to do good to each other and not to ourselves. In modern medicine, Stoicism is at the center of procedures such as rational, emotive therapy with mental short and logotherapy. ATREC helps patients identify negative thought patterns that may be causing emotional and behavioral problems. It allows you to challenge the reasoning behind all these negative thoughts with logic, and when you realize that many of them are unfounded, you can replace them with more productive and healthy beliefs. Logotherapy, on the other hand, is based on the historical principle that human beings are driven by purpose. Even in the darkest of situations, we can fill our lives with meaning and happiness simply by figuring out what that purpose is. But as many of us know, that's easier said than done, only that's a process, just like everything else. And to solve our problems with happiness, we must practice self-esteem by redirecting our definition of value to the things we can control. We can stop fixating on the things we have no control over and fixate on what we already have to lead a much happier life. And gratifying, Stoicism helps us navigate past and present storms in calmer, more peaceful waters. And if by ventura, our ship sinks and we all drown, we can have peace in the fact that we live a good life, although not as good as we hoped, for, remember, everything has an end.